Okay.
Good to go. All right, great, thanks. So good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Today, July 18th, we'll call the July Fire Service Membership Council Governing Committee meeting to order. Just a couple minutes after 1:30, so 1:32. If we can just do a quick roll call, that'd be great. Tim, you want to call the roll, or you want me to do it?
Whatever your pleasure is. I think we got
Go
the
ahead.
same number.
Why don't you go
All
ahead
right.
and I'll check it on mine.
All right. I'll fire through it real quick. Sean Toomey,
I am here.
Tim Deal,
I'm here.
Brian Adams,
I'm here.
Ted Black.
Present.
I did not see Mr. Boycevert. I did not see Wendy Collins. Michael Desrochers.
I'm here.
I saw William Hyde.
Present.
Ed Kaminsky. I let him in.
Here.
There he is.
Yeah, couldn't unmute
All right.
fast enough.
That's okay. I did not see Andy King.
Here.
Oh, Andy made it.
I'll get on
I
it.
bet. All right, sneaky. Kevin Lefebvre, I did not see. I saw Jonathan Lunn.
Here.
Did not see Michael McShane. Larry Medina, I saw.
Here.
I saw Doug Nelson.
Yep.
Kelly Nicolello, I saw.
Here.
Christine Reed, I saw you come on.
Here.
I saw Director Metz.
Here.
I think that's us, right?
And then I did see Angie Weesey, Director Weesey, get on.
Oh, great. Okay. Well,
Present.
thank you, everybody. I guess without further ado, I'd like to just get a quick intro to Matt Hinds Aldrich. He reached out I think it was the beginning of last week, and said, "Hey, I'd like to do a presentation at some point." I responded back, "Hey, how about next week?" And he was kindly was willing to jump in and do a quick presentation on the fire loss mitigation evaluation score work that they've been working on. I think it would be a good intro for many of us on the work that they're doing as sort of an alternate scoring in the insurance world. So, Matt, if you can take it away and share some of your work, that'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Also, my colleague, Sarah Wood, who many of you might have known or know, rather, she's also on the call too. So appreciate everyone's time. As Marshall Toomey said, so I work for American Association of Insurance Services. So I'm going to guess that pretty much everyone here has never heard of us before. Although, let me just share my screen too. Although we've been around since 1936. And so, go. Excellent. So we're a not-for-profit insurance advisory organization. Most people, I'm sure, have never heard of us. I'm sure everyone has heard of our direct competitor, ISO. And so what I want to share today is we're developing a new way of rating public fire protection. We decided to go basically back to square one and develop this. But before I do that, I want to provide a little bit of background, because I'm going to assume that most folks don't know what an advisory organization like us does, or again, for that matter, ISO other. So we're a membership organizations. We have 700 insurance companies that are our members, and they use us primarily for what's called forms and endorsements. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds of insurance, but it's worth noting that basically all the legal minutia, the fine print that no one ever bothers to read, that we cover this under this circumstance up to this amount, but not under this circumstance. Basically, the majority of the insurance industry get that general language from either AAIS or ISO. But in every one of those types of insurance policies, there is some consideration or some they call factor for what is fire protection in the community. The assumption is that if you have better fire protection, you should presumably going to have lower losses, and so you should pay less insurance. And so we'll get into that a little bit here in a second. But so we've had a way of rating public fire protection for a long time. I'll say rather objectively, ours wasn't very good either. I could also articulate the other historical ways it's been done is not great either. But so we decided to go back to kind of square one and develop a new way of rating this. And so it's also worth noting because when I first got here, I've been at AAIS just over 4 years now, and I came most recently from NFPA. When I first got here, I was trying to explain to fire folks what the role of an advisory organization is, and I know it's blasphemy to say at an ICC meeting, but I sort of, when I first got here, realized that it's actually very similar to the role that NFPA, or for that matter, ICC plays in the fire protection world. Because of course, communities could develop their own fire code. It's just such a pain in the butt, and such a it would take so much time and effort and money to do so. It's much easier for them to adopt a standardized model program. So, anyways, again, like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time with kind of basic insurance stuff, but I did want to kind of cover that point. And so when I first got here a couple of years ago, and when we decided to kind of go back to square one and figure out what actually matters, we actually went back to kind of say, where does the history of how we rate public fire protection come from? And found that actually the original, the earliest version we've ever been able to find was from 1916, and that was done by the National Board of Fire Underwriters. And as you can see, that you got different scores, you had different allowances in terms of distance, whether you had these newfangled motorized fire apparatus or the more traditional horses. And so obviously we've added a little bit more complexity to the way we look at it, but the foundation of what we look at today, pretty much you can trace its roots back to horses. And so this was part of the reason we decided to say, all right, let's go back to what actually matters in the modern fire service. And so as Marshal Toomey had mentioned, that what we're developing is we're calling it FLAMES, which stands for Fire Loss and Mitigation Evaluation Score. And so there's two parts to it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about both of them today, more about the latter. But so the first part is the fire loss modeling. That's more of a traditional actuarial analysis. And I'll speak to that here in a second. And then the other part is an evaluation of what communities are doing to mitigate or otherwise prevent, or like another word we might use is community risk reduction, in terms of how they're trying to prevent losses. And so again, I'll speak a lot more to that here in a second. So the first part is this fire loss modeling. We are currently finalizing a quantitative model to predict what the fire losses are for every single zip code in the US. And so we are going to give a score to every single zip code of what the likely frequency and the severity of having a fire loss is. And so so basically, once we wrap this up, there's kind of an asterisk with all this stuff that I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time getting into, but in the insurance industry is a heavily regulated industry. So once we get this model done, we have to get it approved by every single department of insurance. So every state has their own commissioner of insurance, and so we're going to have to get everything we do approved by them. We could talk for hours about the complexities of that process and how and why that may impact why we've kind of historically not changed how we've rated things, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. But all that to say, we are going to give a score to every single zip code. And that is basically, again, it's just more traditional actuarial analysis. And frankly, it doesn't really matter in a way, it really doesn't matter necessarily how great a local fire department is or how not great they are. It's basically just, again, it's a model of results. So that left a kind of a gap that we wanted to address, which is how do we actually measure what's going on in the local community and actually and try to measure in a meaningful way what communities are doing in terms of mitigation. And so we've come up with this mitigation evaluation approach, and that's really what I wanted to kind of share today, because this is really the part that we think is going to have the most impact on the fire service, and frankly, we're hoping will actually have the most benefit in terms of incentivizing communities to really invest in prevention and mitigation. Let me just turn off the AC because I think it might be too loud. So one of the challenges we ran into very early on with this is that as we were trying to come up with a way of measuring community risk reduction at the local level, we sort of ended up in this kind of catch-22. On the one hand, every community is different, and obviously we need to come up with a way that reflects the dynamic and different nature of every community. We're all obviously not all cookie cutters. At the same time, we need to come up with a standardized and objective yardstick, if you will, to measure them. And so those sort of are at odds with one another. Either we're all so unique and different that you can't possibly measure us the same way, or we're all cookie cutters. And again, so it's really sort of presented a challenge for a while, and we think we've come up with a way to solve this through this approach. The other thing worth noting here is we need to come up with a way to do this at scale. And so what I mean by that is we're a small organization. We're frankly much smaller than ISO is, but also we don't think it is feasible and reasonable in this juncture in the world and kind of history to invest in an army of people to go around and knock on fire departments' doors. We need to come up with a way to measure this in a sense remotely, but do it in such a way that's both meaningful, that we're asking important and useful questions, but also, frankly, because we've all been around the fire service, we also need to make sure that it can't be, the system can't be gamed, if you will. And so, because of course that would never happen, but in the event, so anyways, one of the things when I've presented this in the past, often what comes up is people are sort of scratching their head trying to understand, well, like, how does insurance companies use how does this factor into insurance? And so it comes up so frequently, I decided just like, let's put a slide together around this. And so these are all made up numbers, just and grossly simplified for illustration purposes. But what I wanted to kind of really highlight is that is how this whole approach works, and frankly, how the insurance industry works. And again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds of insurance, but I think some of this stuff is important. So for every zip code in the US, for every type of line of business, or every type of insurance line, what they start with is what's called a base loss cost, or a pure premium approach, which is basically for every unit of coverage, whether it's like $1,000 of coverage, how many dollars of premium do they need to charge to break even? And so that's what an advisory organization develops, and we gather all the data from all the different insurance companies to try to figure out for every single type zip code and every type of coverage you can imagine, whether it's farms or automobiles or whatever, what is the amount of premium that needs to be charged? And then they multiply them both by a series of factors, and that's ultimately what a fire protection factor. So when you hear about the PPC, that also then translates into a factor. The same thing here for what we're doing. And so the idea being is that so since you're multiplying it, if it's over a 1.0, that means it's a debit. So it's actually going to cost them more. If it's below a 1.0, it's a credit. So it's going to cost them less. And so the approach we're developing is that the fire loss score, the actuarial analysis we're doing, is going to be on a debit basis. So that's going to effectively, the best they can do is break even. And the worst they can do, our actuaries are still trying to hammer that part out. On the credit side, or basically the mitigation side, is we're trying to measure what a community is doing in terms of preventing losses. So the worst they can do, because we didn't want to, if communities choose not to participate, we didn't want to negatively, in a sense, harm them. So the worst they can do is you just get a flat 1.0, so you get no impact. And then if your community is doing a really good job with prevention and mitigation and community risk reduction, then potentially you could have a credit. And so ultimately that's just a very simple multiplication table, and then you multiply it by the amount of coverage. One thing here is obviously, so I just use like $150,000 of coverage. If that happened to be $1.5 million of coverage, then of course the impact would be more significant. But you start to see that once you start adding all these variables together, then it ends up determining how much your premium is. So again, I'm happy to spend more time with this if you're interested, or I can do that later, or you can follow up with me. But I just wanted to provide a little bit of, I know a lot of folks here are pretty technical, and so I figured I want to provide a little bit of illustration of what the math looks like, because I think insurance has always been seen as this black box, and they're not really quite clear how it works or and everything. So I wanted to kind of give a very simplified illustration of that. So go ahead, Jeff.
Before you leave, are you taking questions now or later?
Either way, if it's germane to that, I'm happy to do that or whatever. So why don't you go ahead?
Just real quickly. So I'm an engineer. I'm looking at numbers, and I'm seeing that in 10 years at $150,000 of coverage, if you're paying $15,000 in premium, whoever's paying that premium essentially paid for the property in 10 years. Are these real numbers, or are they just examples?
They are just 100% made up numbers.
Okay. Okay.
So absolutely, these are literally just threw some random numbers in there to give an illustration. And frankly, yeah. So and in some ways, we also sort of made them look even bigger differences. What you'll often see, and this is actually, frankly, I think one of the other questions that comes up often is like, and there's frankly a lot of complaints. It's like, oh, like we improved our, again, I'll refer to the other folks. We've improved our class grade, and but our residents didn't say that, or like told us they didn't see any difference. Well, that change might go from a 1.14 to a 1.13, and so it's not going to actually. So I've really dramatically had dramatic shifts, but in many cases it might end up being $50 or something. So I saw another question pop up from, I think it was Ed Kaminsky.
Yeah, it's sort of like a compound interest then. Does the order in which you apply the factors matter? Because you apply the mitigation factor at the end. Is that after you've applied all the other factors?
That I'm not 100% sure. But what I will say is in this made up illustration we put together, when we were working on it, we actually deliberately moved it to the bottom so it's easier to see. so the point here is just to make it easier to see. I do not know from a hardcore actuarial standpoint, of which I am not an actuary, whether, or an underwriter for that matter. I don't know if that makes an impact. So great question though. That was my hesitation of showing made up numbers.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, great question though, Fred. So let's see. So with that, so again, I'm going to focus on the mitigation evaluation part of it. So some of the questions, each of these boxes represents a series of KPIs, and KPIs just stands for key performance indicators. So some of this stuff is, you might assume, is pretty standard and pretty obvious in many cases. But each of these topics, we've tried to distill it down to what are the 5 most important questions to ask. We've tried to keep this approach quite consistent, and I'll show you in a few minutes what that means. But we have also, as you see, we are starting to actually get outside of the traditional things we've looked at, and it's going to get even more so here in 2 seconds. But yeah, so under each of these topics is a series of KPIs, and that's what we're actually doing, and we have been doing for the past couple of months, is meeting with subject matter experts in all these different domains. So for example, just to give an illustration, we've had a series of meetings with some of the folks in the emergency communications world, like APCO and some of the other national organizations, to make sure that what we're asking in terms of emergency call handling is, the best or the most important measures to focus on, and the same for all these different domains we're talking about, because we're certainly not experts in every field. So now some so here are some, again, each one of these boxes represents a series of KPIs, and so we've tried to get into each one of these, and ultimately there's there's about 400 KPIs. Now I'll say, and you'll see here in a second, not every community is going to, you're not going to see all 400 of them, or no community will see all 400 of them. But I'm happy if any of these topics are really like, are really kind of close, near and dear to your heart. We're happy to set up time afterwards to delve into them. And so again, I'm going to just move quickly through them because I know I want to respect everyone's time for the meeting. But there's some, again, so each one of these topics, every community, we're going to ask them regardless of the configuration of your community. But here it sort of illustrates how our approach differs. So, and this also approach goes back to how I referred to different nature, different types of risks in different communities. So we've come up with a way of using the National Risk Index, which FEMA puts out, and saying for every county, what are the top 3 types of natural disasters that are likely to occur in that community? And so we're going to use that to then only show the respective fire departments in those areas the questions related to their top 3 perils. And so so if you're in a community that does not have a coastline, you're probably never going to see the tsunami questions, for an illustration. And so that way, every community is going to see the same number of questions. You're just going to see different questions. There are, as we've gone on, one of the things we've actually changed somewhat recently was adding these universal cat perils. And what we mean by that, and cat just refers to catastrophe, it's an insurance term. But we've identified there are some topics that are pretty universal to emergency management and disaster mitigation that we're seeing consistently. So like, well, let's just make sure everybody sees those and answers those questions. So so again, that's and again, we're happy to delve into any of these topics if you're interested. But again, in the interest of time, I'm going to move on. So in the final set of questions we're looking at is around what we refer to as CR priorities. And so we've developed a relatively comprehensive list of different types of risk factors that are not necessarily natural disasters and not fire necessarily, but are issues and concerns in a lot of communities. And so we're going to give basically a list. Again, we tried to come up with a pretty comprehensive one that would that has topics that are hopefully relevant to every different type of community, whether big city or rural area, whatever. And we're going to ask communities to identify what their top 3 priorities are. We decided that it's probably better than us trying to tell them what their priorities are, because obviously we don't know. So they're going to tell us what their 3 priorities are of this list, and then they'll answer the questions related to that. It's also worth noting, we've in a lot of these conversations we've had with people, we've asked, like, basically, are there other topics that we should be including that are not on the list? And so what you see on the right are some of the ones that have been suggested. The ones with lots of question marks behind them are ones that were suggested that we're not sure we can ever get through a insurance regulatory environment, but are probably really, are definitely really important. And so, but if there's anything that you're missing or you suggest that we would include, by all means, please feel free to let us know. And so I wanted to quickly give an illustration of what we mean by some of these KPIs. So again, I used the ones that I had kind of checkmarked there. So if a community identifies buildings under construction as one of their risks. Now, one of the things you'll notice very quickly, because again, is that I keep talking about 5 KPIs, but there's obviously 7 on the screen. The top 2 are, we're not currently, at least the plan currently is not to actually grade them. Those are just really to contextualize what the problem is, and really to see what, as the community does any sort of analysis of what is buildings under construction, what is the problem specific to that community? Is it wood frame construction? Is it buildings under renovation? Is it what is, like, what is have they done any sort of assessment of what their specific problem is or what their concern is? And so then here are the topics that we've identified, and this is why we're again meeting with subject matter experts in all these different fields to make sure that these are the right questions. Quite active in it. So these are the questions we've identified thus far. And again, we're still at a point where we can absolutely change them if there's any suggestion. We try to be very careful to not specifically. There's sometimes it was like, you really need to call out a specific program or organization or designation. We've also tried to be very dynamic and allow some fluidity here. So, for example, I recognize the difference between the way ICC and NFPA, both in 241 and is it chapter 33, I think it is, refer to the role of who's responsible. And so we try to kind of capture that. Now, the one thing I'll note here before I move on to the next couple topics quickly is that the goal here is not particularly these advanced ones, are intended to be sort of stretch goals. We anticipate that a lot of communities are not doing this stuff currently. We're hoping that actually, in a sense, we'll start letting the tail wag the dog. That if that's why we're trying to meet with the SMEs to say what should be done, not necessarily what is the minimum requirements that are legally required. And so we are trying to figure out, are there best practices that we should be measuring to try to encourage communities to start on their path to like doing some of these best practices, because at the end of the day, the score or the benefit of this will be there's an economic element to this, and so we're hoping that will actually provide some incentive for communities to make these hard decisions and to whether it's adopt code or make the decisions that sometimes are politically unpopular in their local community, but actually are beneficial. So and here's another just an example. I just picked 3 of the topics. Carbon monoxide is another one. And so again, if they identify that carbon monoxide as one of their priorities, these would be the questions that they would see. And so again, happy to, whether it's through follow-up or if anyone has any questions later, happy to get into these. And like I said, there's like 400 of these KPIs all told. So I'd be more than happy to chat. And Sarah and I will also be at the NASFM conference in a couple of weeks. So if you want to take us aside, we're happy to sit down and chat about some of this stuff. And then the last one is around drowning and water safety. This is probably, and the last thing I'll say here is drowning and water safety, except for if it's like a liability issue, is really not a actual property and casualty insurance topic. The same thing with fall injuries. What we've decided to do here is sort of push the boundaries of the stuff that typically falls in insurance, because obviously in many cases, there's not a financial issue or even, it's not even a claim, won't translate to a claim, an insurance claim, or at least not a property casualty insurance claim, typically for drowning. Maybe life and health for sure, but what we're really focusing on is a community has told us that, or they've self-identified that, say, for in this case, drowning or falls or any other topic is a priority in their community, and what are they doing about it? So really, what we're trying to measure is the what are they doing at part. And so with that, that's the last thing I wanted to share today. And again, I'm really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And so if there's any last questions, or Jeff, did you have another question?
Yeah, so it's an interesting approach because it seems like it's set up to financially incentivize local programs that really don't have an impact on insurance losses, or at least losses to the built community. So I look at like construction, and while I'm all in favor of encouraging people to have better safety practices associated with construction, the fires in buildings under construction are a totally different market than fires in the built environment that exists after the buildings are built. And if this is impacting insurance rates, then I'm kind of having trouble drawing the connection here of a unique hazard that's actually even a separate market when you're looking at buildings under construction, impacting the insurance rate for people who might have been in a building in the community for 20 years. So I think it's an interesting approach. I'm having trouble connecting the dots on logic as to why an insurer that subscribes to your rating system, and by the way, I'm a fire service representative on this call and a consultant. I don't have anything to do with the insurance industry, but
Sure.
I'm just curious why, if I'm an insurer, I would want to subscribe to a program that is going to affect my rating structure on topics that really aren't directly related to the losses that I'm dealing with. I mean, if it's all about a
Sure.
numbers game,
Mhm.
why would you not just base it on things that impact my losses, my bottom line as an insurer?
Sure.
And then why would I
Mhm.
use you if you don't?
Sure. So two things. So you're absolutely right that it's called builder's risk is a type of insurance that covers buildings under construction, and there are separate types, and that falls under a type of insurance called inland marine. The inland marine and the builder's risk insurers are very, 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 very concerned about fires in buildings under construction. Once that building is occupied, and once they have a more traditional commercial policy or residential policy or dwelling property, whatever type of building it is, it falls under a different type of insurance, and frankly, many times a different insurer. But the same thing. So the type of insurance that would be interested in it was definitely, the insurers are going to be different. Really, what we're trying to capture, and this is to your wider point, and again, I won't try to belabor this too long, is that really what we're in some ways, the topics that they choose are immaterial, whether they choose drowning, carbon monoxide, and buildings under construction, or they choose any other three. What we're really trying to measure, and this is why it's really, we think it's important to insurers, is that we're really trying to measure, does the community recognize that they have some risk? Do they understand what those risks are? And are they actually doing something of some affirmative effort to try to mitigate those risks? And so, so we're sort of getting at the transferability in terms of if they're doing a good job with fires, addressing fires in buildings under construction, they're probably also doing a good job with all the other things that insurers do care about too. So that's really what we're almost using in almost as a sense of a proxy measure. We're really trying to measure, is the community taking a proactive approach to reducing risk, or are they just waiting for bad things to happen and driving really fast? And that's really what it comes down to it. So. Again, happy to elaborate any further, but I don't want to take any more time than I was allotted.
Thank you very much, Matt, for the short notice and the good presentation.
Sure, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions at all, or? Sounds like also, Kara?
Yeah, hi. I'm just curious, is this going to help homeowners that are being canceled because a insurance company is like, you're just in a high risk area, even though they're not? We're in Colorado, and I have some homes that are not in a WUI area per se, but they're just being canceled because of that. Is this type of assessment going to help some of that?
Yes, we hope so. Again, there's always this hanging asterisk of once we get approved and once it's adopted by carriers. So there's going to be a lag period for sure. And I'll just come out and say as well that I've been hearing through the word work that because we've been shaking their tree, that ISO might even be planning to update their approach too. So we might be most successful by agitating them enough to actually make the changes that they should have done too. So but that's a whole separate topic for a different day. But yes, we do hope that this will be used as this. But again, part of this ultimately is that insurance companies have done talk a lot about mitigation, or they now are talking a lot about mitigation, but really have not done a very good job. It's always been on very much of a one-to-one relationship between the insurer and the insured, so the insurance company and the people that have insurance coverage. But they've never really done a good job of measuring the meso, if you will, the community level. And so that's really what that gap we're trying to fill. And ultimately, again, and some of the questions we do have around or relate to wildfire, and really is trying to look at this issue. Does the is the community do they recognize their risk? Are they actually making meaningful and evidence-based approach, or taking evidence-based approaches to reduce that risk? Or are they just saying, hopefully bad things don't happen in our community?
Anybody else? Well, thank you again, Matt and Sarah. Thanks for jumping in. I saw a couple of answers on the chat if you want to just take a peek at that. But thank you again for being here, and I'll see you at the NASM conference in a couple of weeks here. So, all right. So again, welcome. We'll get on with our regular meeting. Any additions or corrections to the agenda by any of our members at all? All right, hearing none, I'll move on. We're going to skip the approval of minutes of the June meeting. We didn't get a chance to get them put together yet, so we'll defer that to the next meeting. For work group updates, Brian Adams, can you give us an update on member engagement, please?
Yeah, hi, everybody. So member engagement, we canceled our last meeting. Looking to get back together so that we can work on laying out the schedule for the rest of the year. Our next meeting, trying to pull it up here, but should be next month, so August the 20th at 2 p.m. So if you have interest in kind of having input on that, then feel free to join us. We'll look for people to participate, or feel free to email me if you have any suggestions, just like Matt today. You know, if there's somebody out there that you've heard speak that would be good for a 20 or 30 minute kind of presentation in front of the group, feel free to get a hold of me so we can get that lined up. And that's all I have right now.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone have any questions for Brian or any thoughts? Brian, I think I want to say the last meeting, I'm not sure you were able to join us, but I believe you have assistant chief after your name or in front of your name, depending on which way you sign it. But congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
Emerging issues and trends, Michael Desrochers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the presentation, Matt. We had our work group meeting on Monday, and a couple things came out of the meeting. One is we're going to do a review of some of our previous items, because some of those are still kind of just out there lingering around. So we're going to try to close the loop on some of the topics. But one of the topics we did discuss was we had an ammonia response in Vermont. And I know this is a little repetitive to some of the folks that were on our call, but we had some foam insulation sprayed over an 18,000 square foot area in a parking garage with condominiums up above it. Apparently there was some fire retardant paint of some sort that was sprayed over this foam, and the incident got investigated because our hazmat team with 4 different metering devices were picking up ammonia. And so right now there's been a sample of that foam with the paint that's been sent off to a lab to be tested, but they had an industrial hygienist there who stated that this was likely caused by heat and humidity with a reaction with the foam and the paint that actually caused this ammonia incident. So more to our group is looking into that, more to come on that at our next meeting. Our next meeting is on Monday, August 19th at 3 o'clock. Anybody can join. On Monday's call there, we had 12 people on the call, and you know, it's not always just agenda items, right? It's that people can bring some ideas to the group meeting on emerging issues and trends. And Kelly brought up an item too, which we'll discuss again in the group, but it dealt with robotic systems and so forth, and we're just not sure it's ready to be an item on our list yet. So come join us if you can, Monday, August 19th, and I look forward to seeing everybody face to face, obviously in October. Thank you, Chair Toomey.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Marshall Desrochers? All right, thank you again. I still want to know what you're doing to get the most people at your work group. So if you can share that with the others, that'd be great.
It's money.
It's money? Okay. All right. Public awareness, Kelly Nicolello.
Good afternoon, everyone. We had a meeting last week. Basically, we were just kind of looking at where we sit with articles published, articles in the hopper being worked on, and potential other articles we want to bring in later on in the year. So it was just kind of a wide-ranging issue, a wide-ranging conversation. We just kind of taking a mid-year restock of where we're at, and some things that we want to push forward. And so with that being said, our next meeting is August 8th at 12 p.m. Central, and anybody who wants to call in is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone have any questions for Kelly at all? All right, so training and education at the moment, Mark Awesome stepped down as the chair of that work group. So I'd just like to say thank you to Mark for all his work leading that group, but also do a plea for the next person that would like to step up and fill in that role. If they could let me know, that would be great. So kind of take a pause on that one for now. We're going to move on to reports from officers and liaisons.
Wait a minute.
Oh, hold on. Is that you for us or someone else, John? Guess he's not talking to us. All right, Director Metz. Report from the board.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome from the board for this month's meeting. Thank you for Director Weesey for also being on the call. A couple announcements. You may have already seen some of these in your email inboxes. Probably the biggest announcement is that the board has successfully hired a new CEO for ICC to replace Dominic Sims at the end of the year. Many of you may know him. His name is John Belsick. He's been with ICC for a very long time, serves currently as our CFO and our COO, knows the organization better than any of the candidates that we interviewed, and we feel very good about bringing John on as the replacement for Dominic. We think that it'll be a seamless transition between these two, and we look forward to seeing where John takes the organization and working with him as the board looks to establish our next strategic plan as our strategic plan 2025 is coming to a close. So lots of things are going to be happening there. There'll be some large celebrations at the ABM, thanking Dominic for all that he's done for ICC. He's been with us for over 20 years, was here in the very beginning, has been our CEO for at least the last 12 years, and has really positioned ICC extremely well for the future. And we thank Dominic for everything that he's done for us in the past and look forward to the future there. We are taking public comments right now for anybody that is interested. The board approved a new scope and intent for the International Energy Conservation Code. That is open for a 45-day public comment period that will close on 8/19. If you have any interest at all, you can get information on our website to submit public comment for consideration on the new scope and intent for the 2027 IECC. And at the same time, we're also accepting applications for members of the new consensus committees for both residential and commercial as they relate to IECC. Remember, this is a a standards process, so it is a little bit different than our traditional code development process. But it is time to seat a new committee, and if you are interested there, also refer to the website and submit your information. I hope you guys have all already gotten your hotel rooms for Long Beach. They are going quickly. Some of the hotels are already booked out, but ABM and Conference 1020 to 1023. Hopefully all of our membership council people will be coming in early to attend the ABM that will be on 1021. And then your meeting will officially occur on 1023. And I look forward to being with you guys in person on that in Long Beach. Immediately following that, our Group A committee action hearing number 2 will occur. That will start on 1023 in the afternoon and continue on through October 31st scheduled right now. And fire code is part of that. We don't know yet. We have not seen an official monograph come out as far as when the hearing schedule will be for fire code and International Wildland Urban Interface Code. But as soon as we see that, we will make sure that you're aware of what those dates are. If you're a golfer, the board and the past presidents of ICC sponsor the Ron Burton Golf Tournament every year. That will be occurring on 1020. So if you come in a little early on Sunday, they're going to be playing the Harding course, which is part of Griffith Park, one of the largest parks in the nation, right in the middle of Los Angeles. So more information on that can also be found on our website. And the last thing I want to let you guys know, I know a lot of you have grown accustomed to our Pronto online testing service for all of our certifications. I know some individuals have had some issues with utilizing Pronto within their jurisdictions. As of July, we are back in business with in-person testing as well at Measure Learning test sites. So information for that is on our website as well, but just making it clear that you have an opportunity now to bypass the online testing and go back to in-person if that works better for you and your agency and firewall-related issues. That's all I have from the board for right now. I'll go ahead and throw it over to Angie Weesey and see if she has anything that she'd like to add. But I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Director Toomey's or Marshall Toomey's doing a great job leading this group, and the numbers that we see on your calls show the interest that the Fire Service Membership Council continues to have. Director Weesey?
Thanks, Randy. I'm actually surprised you didn't cover the biggest news of all, which related to the WUI code in California. And
well, that's more a
efforts,
California thing, but you know, you can.
It is, but it's also just it's a acknowledgement too. I think, given that California has had a homegrown WUI, and I think California has, I would say, the most public wildland fire issue. But it's as Kara was mentioning, you know, it's hitting almost every state at this point. So it's a big deal, and it's a big deal for more than California. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit specifics, Randy. You would. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Act like
So
I know the California fire issue.
What Director Weesey is referencing is this past week, our Building Standards Commission held our Code Advisory Committee process, which is basically the final hurdle to recommend codes to the Building Standards Commission for the state of California to adopt statewide. And for the first time ever, we are recommending the adoption of a California version of the Wildland Urban Interface Code that's published by ICC with California amendments. And this has been a 2-year process. We didn't know if we were going to make it into this cycle right here, but we believe this is a huge step forward for the state of California and for the nation to see that other states could successfully adopt the IWIC I know Colorado has been working on that, and they're probably side by side with us on their adoption process. But I think that this is going to be a huge step forward for everybody in establishing codes and standards for the wildland urban interface area nationwide. Thank you, Director Weesey.
Yeah, the only other thing is, and I think this was in the newsletter, so you likely already saw it, but just the when disaster strikes, training should be more available and able to be licensed by folks so that it can be, really it's an effort so that it can be disseminated much more broadly. So I know a lot of folks on here participate in DART teams, and that's really what that training is trying to get folks teed up to be DART, to be assessors and certified. So we did it here in St. Paul many moons ago through a FEMA grant, and that was really the only way that we could accomplish it at that time. And so now it should be much more accessible, and hope that you all at least look into it and share it within your networks, building and fire.
Thank you both for being here and sharing the information, the updates from the board. And thank you both for the work. I think you both were maybe a little bit involved in Dominic's replacement. I understand the rumors that was quite a bit of effort on the board's part. So thanks, and hopefully we got a good leader moving forward into next year. So I don't think there's anyone else on from ICC leadership perspective.
I didn't see any other board members on the list.
Yeah, I didn't see any either. Okay. Couple of things for me. Speaking of the board, I did submit a letter of interest for a board position for the upcoming upcoming ABM. So you might see my name and resume and stuff starting floating around. I'd appreciate people's support if given the opportunity. I think it'd be a tremendous opportunity to move up and help advance some of the mission and of the organization, and continue some of the good work that Randy and Angie have talked about, and others on the board. So Tim's going to talk a little bit about our annual report and goals that we need to think about, but I'll wait for a minute on that. The other thing that came out today is the Pro Codes Act. Probably some people saw that. So it's gone through the House committee, and it's due for a vote in the full House either later this week or the beginning of next week. So if you have an opportunity to reach out to your federal delegations to support the Pro Codes Act, that would be good for any of us in the ICC world or the NFPA world or any other standards for that matter. So a lot to do with the copyright protection and availability and our whole code process that we follow in the country. The booking the hotel reminders out there. Also this week, or end of last week, I think there was a call for applications for the membership councils. So if you have interest, your term's up and you want to continue, please make sure you get your applications in. Many of us on this committee are by MOU with our respective agencies, NASFRM, for instance, for me, IAFC for some of the others. Those aren't quite as critical, but just keep that in mind. If you have any questions, reach out to, I'm going to throw Carl into the bus on this one since he's not here, but Carl has probably a great handle on where that's at. And the only other thing I wanted to, maybe a little bit out of order, but the August meeting is the same time as FRI this year. I will be at FRI. I don't quite know the schedule of meetings that I have to be at for that event. So I just wanted to see what people's availability might be for August to make sure we have a quorum for the meeting. So if people want to just do a quick note in the chat or a thumbs up, if you think you'll be able to attend, that'd be great. Or if we should consider moving it or skipping in the August meeting. Just pause there for a moment. Right. And Tim Schmitz, thank you for putting some links in there on the Pro Codes thing. Director Weesey, I see you have your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that since Carl's not here to speak for himself, he's usually also at FRI. So sometimes in the past, we would actually just hold it kind of hybrid, where people who were at FRI could attend in person, and then depending on how the schedule shakes out, but
Okay.
that might be an option for you as well.
Thank you very much. Getting a couple of about 50-50 right now, so. Maybe what we'll do is I'll have, we'll do a follow-up quick survey by email just to see when you pick up the few others that aren't here today, just to make sure we can have a quorum for the meeting. So I think that's all I had for this month. Tim Deal, if you want to take it away from the vice chair position.
Thanks, Sean. Good day, everybody. Of course, busy here, work like usual, but the other thing I got going on, of course, is the Membership Steering Council, which I'll give that report later on down. But that has been a lot of energy, a lot of activity there, and a lot of good things that I'll be reporting on a little bit later. The other item I've got going is I also sit on AAIS. Their Fire and Life Safety Steering Committee, and I was had the opportunity to present to that group last week. So I presented on the emergency communications requirement, the BDAs, radio enhancement systems for in the buildings. So anyway, so that was my other big thing going on. If you have questions or concerns, please let me know, and I'll have more later on.
Thanks, sir. Tim Schmitz, do you want to add anything other than the hotel reminder?
Yeah, I had the hotel because they're going fast, as we chatted the other day. And that link I put in the chat right now is for support letter to the pro codes. You enter in your information, it automatically pulls up your correct congressional district. So if you want to look that over, if you guys feel like putting some support letters in, that'd be great, because we do anticipate it getting voted on in the full House early next week. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Membership Council Officers and Liaisons, Building Membership Council. I think Tom, oh, maybe we lost him. Tim, do you have anything from that? I know you jump in on that one once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, they had their meeting yesterday. No, Tuesday. Sorry, I missed a day. They had their meeting on Tuesday. It was pretty well attended. Once again, they reviewed the call for committees, or the call for the council, as well as they restructured some of their committees also. Saw Mark on here earlier. Mark Matheny, you can give a little bit more as the outgoing co-chair if you still want to. There he is. I see him.
Mark.
Go grab him.
Yeah, thanks all. I just had to shut my door here. You were on such a roll, Tim. I didn't want to interrupt. So
Sorry, I missed you, Mark.
Yeah, no worries. I saw Tom on there earlier and figured he covered as well. So good to be here. Good to hear everybody and to be able to speak. Yeah, we had our meeting on Tuesday. Done a little bit of structural change with our committees. In more of a fluid method. Is the way we've looked at that is that let's identify really what we need to be addressing and working on for the current and upcoming years, and then let's build the committees around that. And so our committees aren't going to be like carved in stone, kind of the way they have been the last 5-year block, and then previous years for that. We're really going to every couple of years kind of reevaluate what our need is and build those committees to be able to address that. So that's been going pretty well. We as you mentioned a minute ago, it's good to see all the participation, and we had a really good participation as well. The real thing that we're looking forward to now is transitioning that participation into engagement, right? So we've got a lot of people that are involved, a lot of people who are energized, but now we really need to get them into those committees that we've identified to solve the needs and to solve the things that we want to do. And so we're pushing a little bit hard on that. And yeah, it was a good meeting. We've got the names escaping me. Sorry, I'm stalling here a little bit, but the new process that ICC is about to open up, including mentorship. Right, there's the new group of service that they're putting includes mentorship. One of the things that Ed Lisinski did was kind of challenge the BMC to everybody on there sign up to be a mentor or a mentee, right? So let's get that engaged and get that moving as well. And so there was a lot of conversation about the advantages to that, not only for the new people finding members, but also for some of the older folks being mentored from the younger technology savvy people. There's a lot of opportunity for all of that. So I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate the time.
All right, thank you for the update. Appreciate it. Tim, back to you for membership council.
Yeah, and thanks for the segue, Mark. As some of you have maybe heard, maybe not heard, ICC is getting ready to roll out their membership engagement platform. This will kind of give everyone the chance to be on and get information from each of the councils, depending on the council that you belong to, as well as Mark mentioned, an area for the mentorship, where you can either sign up to be a mentor or request or find a mentor. So that is going to be one of the new exciting parts for this engagement platform. It's still in a little bit of beta testing with the chairs and vice chairs of the councils, but from the last meeting that we had and the review we had, it should be getting ready to come out to the membership right around August 1st. I would probably push that to maybe the end of August, beginning of September, but it is well on its way. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. It really, I believe, will be a great benefit to our members of not only being an area to hold resources, but to be able to have forums and engagement between the different agencies and the different people, and really to help expand our membership in that engagement, as Mark included, so that we be able to staff the committees that we have on the councils with more people, not necessarily just everyone on the governing committee. So looking forward to that. And as was mentioned, I said before, the calls for those councils are out. I encourage everybody to apply if you're so willing. We will have seats. Every council has a seat, I believe, that's pretty much open. But look at those, review those. It's going to be an online process. So that process has changed a little bit. So just be aware of the timelines and the time frames. I will mention that probably in that August meeting or somewhere after, we may have to have a special meeting to review, or at least the nominating committee is going to have to get together. So we will need a nomination committee. The other item is the goals for the council. They were due last week. We're a little bit behind, but we'll get those together. So I'm going to be pushing for those chairmen and co-chairs of the committees to give me a little bit of information so that the group can get that form that we've developed in the membership steering council together to make it easier for us. They are going to be due. A draft is supposed to be coordinated by next August 15th. So we're really trying to get that information together so we have everything ready for our timeline to submit to the board at their December meeting. And that's all I've got right now.
Thanks, Tim. I don't think we have anyone from global membership that I saw.
Greg, I mean, you're good.
And then also, I don't think we have anything from emerging leaders today either. I don't know.
No, Greg is there.
Oh, Greg's there. Sorry, Greg.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kylie is out today. She's pretty sick, so I'm filling in for her. Just a couple of things, and I will start with my plea, like I think I did the last time I was here, for donations for the Day of Service. That's run by Wicked and Permit Tech Nation. That's the volunteer thing that they do before the ABM every year. They were trying to reach $10,000 in order to build some new play sets for the kids in the community that we are helping. We're actually just shy of 4,000, so we need a lot of donations. If you could reach out to, your chapters or your company, I will put the link in the chat right now, and you can click on that, and even if it's a personal donation of like $10 or $20, anything will help, and it would be very appreciated because we're trying to reach out and help the community. Next was ELMC has partnered in the past with BMC and SMC for the Vote for Your Codes campaign. We are reaching out to the other MCs to see if we could get a rep or two to join a multi-MC subcommittee to kind of help promote voting for your codes and understanding the process of like CDP access and all that sort of stuff. So if anybody, not necessarily from your GC, but just any of the fire members would like to join that, if you could shoot me an email. I will put my email in the chat a little later as well. We will appreciate any help. Our last meeting of ELMC was on June 10th. We had a presentation from Alex Kerr on an update on the technical training program. We also had a presentation from David Jackson and Ellen White Thunder on the Native American Code Officials chapter. So the creation and progression of the tribal chapters across the country. They're doing some pretty big things and moving forward, and I can get a link for that as well to check that out. It's definitely something worth looking at. Let me see. Day of Service, Vote for Your Codes. Yep, and then I think our next meeting is going to be August 12th, and we will have a presentation, I believe, from, I can't remember her last name, Autumn, on the update to certifications and the new testing system and how it incorporates digital codes in that. And then lastly, I had sent an email out to the steering committee members to kind of go back to their membership councils and see if folks had any interest in a joint membership meeting. I just, either way, if you could shoot me an email back with the tally of how many people will be there and if anyone is interested, it would be very much appreciated. And that's it for ELMC.
Great, thank you very much. Christine, I don't know if throw you on a spot here, update on the ad hoc battery stuff you've been working on with maybe a good time. She went missing on us.
Yeah, I didn't think she could stay the whole time, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
No, we weren't. No big deal. No.
I'm so sorry. I had to step out for a quick second. What did you need, Sean?
No, I didn't know if you wanted or could provide any quick update on the battery, the ad hoc battery group that you've been helping out with.
Yeah, so the committee met earlier this month, I think last week, and the work groups are still working hard on creating the gap analysis. The next meeting is August 1st, 2 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who are interested and you're not getting the meeting invites, just let me know and I can add you to the list so that you can get the meeting invite to join as an interested party. But we're looking forward to the results of the work group's work and be ready for the future board meeting. That's all I have though, Sean.
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Any ongoing business that people might have? I feel like we cover most of it as we go through, but it's good to circle back. Seeing and hearing none. How about anybody have any new business? Hotels, that's what I'm going to remind everyone again. So next meeting tentatively, I guess, is August 15th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'll ask Carl to send out an invite. It seemed like we're about 50-50 in the chat there a few minutes ago on availability. So I'll ask Carl if he can just send out a survey to kind of lock that in a little bit better and make a decision on which direction we need to go. Any questions, comments from anyone else that's with us today? I think we had top end was about 39, 40 people today, so that was great as usual. Or any good of the order. Everybody wants 20 minutes back of their day. All right, so I just again a thank you to everyone for being with us today. Thanks for the participation. If anyone is interested in the training and education kind of chair work group, please reach out. And just the usual plea to please try to stay engaged in some of the work groups. There's some good stuff going on there, and I think the more people, the better. So thank you, everybody, and we will probably see you in about a month, if not before. So have a great day.
How about motion to adjourn?
Oh, you want that formally? All right. So
Ted Black, so moved.
there we go.
Christine second.
Perfect. And everyone's disappearing, so they must be in it. That must be all in favor. So,
Aye.
thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.